remember using Mum. Was that cream you have to put under your arm? Well, after Mum became what Moosey says are these 5-day pads. And after the 5th day, Moosey found something else to do with them. Stay tuned and you will hear Moosey tell you. Hi there. Well, today's video is somewhat of a participation video. I asked you at the end of the last video if you would recall some nostalgic memories that you might have way back, that you have memories perhaps of your mother or of you or of a grandmother concerning beauty products, hair, makeup, clothing, anything of those old good days, and you responded with some fabulous comments. Some of them I've written down, and because I didn't want to forget them, but others brought up memories in my mind too. And there are some fantastic comments. So let's get into it. And this is strictly, other than the haircut that you'll see a little bit later in the video. Moosey requested that haircut, so I did do one. So I did give you a little snippet of my memory about our nails when I was speaking about my nail polish, foil nail polish, and the fact that I remember way back when in the 40s and possibly even in the 50s, when women did not cover the moon of your nails. Now, I remember very well that my mother, and even if she put polish on my nails, made sure that my moons were exposed. Now, one of you ladies said that the possible reason for that, there might have been a misconception in those days of the fact that if you put polish too close down to the cuticle, it might send some infection into the skin. So that might have been a reason for it, or it might have been strictly for beauty. Who knows? Everybody seems to remember that back in the day, nails were almost always bright red, and same with the lipstick. Now, some of the other things that I remember, and particularly I have a funny story. There's going to be a few rabbit hole stories in here because of some of the things that I remember doing myself. Now, hair was something that ran the gamut from rags when we were little girls, and my mother used to tear up cotton sheets or whatever, and we had these white rags that she would set my hair forever in those. And then when she took them out, we had these curls. Some of them were very skinny. She didn't comb out the hair, or other times as we got a little bit older, she would call it out. We had very curly hair, and God forbid that anyone showed up with straight hair. I think for years, everybody was getting perms, and some of you mentioned those Tony perms. And I'm telling you, I can still remember, my mother gave me quite a few too. I can still remember the smell of those perms. Weren't they just horrible? And speaking of smells, do you remember Nair? Nair was that cream, that awful smelly cream that at one point they invented to smear all over your legs and wherever else. I never tried it anywhere else, to get the hair off your legs. You had to sit there for 20 or 30 minutes with this foul smelling stuff on your legs. Now that was probably when I was older, maybe high school, obviously hair on my legs. I don't think I even shaved my legs till college, but that was awful too. But back to the hair now. I had, besides those rags and besides perms, I remember metal curlers. Some were very tiny and some were bigger. Those ones with the holes in them, and then those clips that went around. We used those for a while, especially when I was a young girl. I think they might have been gone by high school. By high school and college, Oh, there's Shamu. By high school and college, I think we were into the pink soft foamy curlers, and those were great because you could sleep on them. Otherwise, if we wanted curls in the morning, we had to sleep on something pretty bad. And by high school, I don't think I ever, on any day, the whole time I was in high school, ever wore straight hair. My hair was quite long then, and I did have this rolled page boy. That was quite the style in those days. Other girls had the soft, feathery things. I don't think the big bouffants had started until I was maybe in college. If you wanted curls, you had to have a pretty bad night sleeping on iron curlers or other things that just were terrible. Now, one funny thing I remember, when we moved to Scotland, let's say that was in the mid to late 60s. Moosey and I had 4 little babies at that point, all under 6, I think. And I still had long hair, well, to my shoulders, not really long. And I think at that point, perhaps the heated curlers might have been invented by then. I'm not too sure. But when I got over there, of course, with the electricity being completely different in the UK, living in Scotland, of course, was different from the American plugs. So none of my electrical things worked, but Moosey did buy some converters. This is big thing you could plug into the wall. Now, why I didn't use them, maybe they weren't even invented by then, but guess what I used to have to do to curl my hair? I had curlers that came in a set that was not electric, but they were very neatly put into a set, and they were about 1 inch in diameter, that I had to boil in hot water. Do you remember that, Moosey, in Scotland?
Oh, do I remember it?
He's fibbing. But every time that I had to go out, I remember one time we were invited to go to a concert. It was a late invite. And Moosey said, are you ready to go? And oh gosh, my hair had to be washed and everything. I did everything so fast. But I remember one of the first things I did was put the boiling water on the stove so that I could put my curlers in. And then I put those things in my head. How many of you remember that? Was that just for a little while over there? Where did I even find these things? I don't ever remember bringing them home from Scotland or using them once we got home, but can you imagine that? Now, if you have or have ever read the Vermont Country Store catalog, that is a great nostalgic catalog. And in there, it has all the foods that we used to love, the crackers, the Dayton nut bread. That's where my Dayton nut bread used to come from. They don't make that anymore in the can. But all the clothing, the Eileen West nightgowns and the M. Mac t-shirt dresses with the fish on them. Remember that? I think that might have been one of the first t-shirt dresses that we wore. Getting back to the makeup. I did not wear makeup when I was younger. I didn't wear it for a long time. One of the reasons was because I had very dry skin. My skin, well, the rest of my body is worse, but my face, anytime I tried to use any powder of my mother's, it would just, you could see flakes on my face. I didn't like it. It was too dry. And I think in those days, I had not really found the right product to put on my face. I was using things like Jergens lotion or Pond's cream. Now, everyone was familiar with that, but I think they use that for cleansing. I still have a jar of that in the bathroom to get your makeup off with, but I don't use that one. But I never could find a greasy enough cream until I was in my 30s, and I found Nivea in the blue jar. And I have used Nivea on my face since I was in my 30s, probably at least twice a day. And that might be one of the reasons that's kind of kept me at bay a little bit. But the other good thing I think about Nivea is the fact that you can't just dot that on like serums or something light. You have to rub that in. And as you know, I'm a big fan of massaging your face and getting those lymphatic drains going. And I'm going to do another video real soon about that one. Since then, I still use my Nivea, but since then, I have also used on occasions the Bio Oil Gel. And I thought I had that here with me, but I don't. That's in my bedroom. But so many other oils, if it's greasy, like the snail oil, castor oil's good, but I do have to cut it a little bit. That's getting a little thick. But before I put any makeup on my face, I have to put something. It's usually the Bio Oil Gel or the snake serum. No, the snail serum. That tends to dry up a little faster. So there you go with the creams. Someone asked me, what do you use? And I have to go back to the Nivea because that's the one I found, the only one that is allowing me to do makeup. And I didn't start makeup until maybe 5 years ago. Foundation I'm talking about. But I did do my eyes. Now, in high school, I used to use Vaseline on my eyelashes, and that would make them look a little longer and make them look a little thicker and darker. But when I got into college, and I noticed a lot of the other girls were doing this, they were all applying all sorts of makeup. It seems to me that the mascara at that time, I remember buying that little flat, was a little box that slid open, and there was this little slit of caked, or what you might call pancake mascara. And a little tiny brush, it was about this long, the bristles were about this long, in there that you used to have to wet the brush and then slide it across this little dark mascara and apply mascara that way. I think I used that on my eyes mostly in college. Can you believe that? I know they must have invented tube mascaras at that point, but I don't remember. Now, rouge was something different. My mother always used rouge and powder, and I could never do that. So I would always use lipstick on my cheeks. In high school, in the wintertime, I'd pinch my cheeks just to get some color. But everyone has mentioned all the different kinds of makeup. And I did a little research the other day. Of course, makeup goes back to the Egyptian times when women used the cork, where they'd burn it and get the colors from the cork, and various other things, that umbers that they would use on those big dark eyes that they had. Now, I put my glasses on because I jotted down so many things I didn't want to forget. People mentioned perfume smells, from Shalimar to Arpege and Lily of the Valley, and what was another one my mother wore? Coty Lamont. And someone else said that they used to send love letters off to their boyfriends and smear Chanel 5 on the, I think I did that a couple of times, put perfume on it, but not Chanel 5. But she said it was very inexpensive in those days. Now, I don't remember that. It wasn't one of my favorite perfumes at the time. What was it in college? Now, Musa, you remember this one. What was the scent I wore in college that you remember?
Écusson.
Écusson. Do you remember that?
That was the one that was given to you in a quart bottle by the West Pointer.
Oh, he's right. I had a West Point boyfriend at that point, and he used to give me these giant perfume bottles of Écusson, and I don't remember who the maker of that was. But anyway, it was a lovely perfume. And I used to get so many of these bottles from Jimmy that all my buddies used to come in and splash this stuff all over them. And as it turned out, it was a fairly expensive perfume too. C'est la vie. So I'm going to read you a little something about what I found out about the history of what you might call modern day makeup. But it really, and this is cosmetic products. this sort of goes back to the mid 1800s. And this started, they call this woman the pioneer of cosmetic products. And her name was Harriet Hubbard Ayres. And that name has stuck in my head since I was a young girl, because my mother had a jar of Harriet Hubbard Ayres. And that's a name you just don't forget. I knew nothing about the woman. All I knew was that when you put Harriet Hubbard Ayres on your face, and I think this is the one, it was a white cream that you put on your face and it never rubbed in. It stayed there. And when I would try and wash it off, I'd still get that residue. Now, she had other products, and she was a fascinating lady, completely changed to becoming a journalist all about cosmetics and beauty. Now, she supposedly was the pioneer in the mid-1800s. But then there were women like Helena Rubinstein, Elizabeth Arden, and I always remember walking by when my mother would take me into New York City, and we'd visit Bamberger's, and we'd go to Radio City Music Hall, or we'd go to see Santa Claus in Bamberger's. But we would go by a store that had this bright red door, and that was Elizabeth Arden's salon. And I always wondered what it was like to go through that door and get all the beauty treatments that I would hear all about behind Elizabeth Arden's red door. So there are other famous names. I think Estee Lauder was also in that group. And then, of course, from there on, it's just history. It goes and goes. Now, do you have any products that you remember from Helena Rubinstein? I don't remember that in my mother's entourage of cosmetics, but I don't remember that. I do remember some Estee Lauder products, but so that's makeup. One of my viewers, I think it's Aileen, I think that's how you pronounce her name, she said she also learned from her mother when she started applying makeup, or a friend, I can't remember which it was, how to get rid of that orange line, jawline, where you had to blend. Now, how many times have you remembered seeing women in those days? I don't ever notice it anymore. In fact, I hope I don't have it. My remedy is to use a Kleenex and feather away some of this, because I don't always bring my makeup down, because many of the time I have something on, like a white shirt or something, that I don't want to get makeup on. So I know people use these misting sprays and things to set it, but I still don't usually bring it down. Sometimes I try and put a little bit here to disguise my beauty marks, as my mother used to tell me all my little moles were. But now, many of you in your comments mentioned all the various products that we used to wash our hair with, and all the commercials that would go with it. I bet Moosey remembers some of the commercials for shampoo. There was Prel. There was, oh wait, I had that written down. Somebody mentioned all of them. Oh, Brett shampoo. Many ads for Brett. But now I rest, anything goes. Everybody has their own favorite shampoo. Usually one that I like is one that's volumizing. And by the way, speaking of shampoo, and not regular shampoo, as you know, I am a big fan of dry shampoo. And I have found a new one that I can't believe it puffs up your hair so much. If you have thinning, aging hair like I do, this will just puff it up to the point where you won't believe. It's made by Dove, and it's a drugstore product, obviously, just the same company that makes the drug soap. And it just says it's an advanced dry shampoo. But boy, it comes out, as I've told you before, it comes out a little damp, and you wait a couple of seconds, and then you just rub it into your scalp, and your hair will volumize. I'm going to show you in one of the next videos how it goes up. I'll do a demonstration of this, but just wanted to tell you. Oh, and by the way, someone else asked me what the Amazon link was for this set. I showed you that I wore this, I think, in my last video. Yes, Maybe I did. And this is the necklace and the bracelet set that I got on Amazon with the wooden clasp, which I love. Now, I noticed that when I look on Amazon now, the wooden clasps are a little darker. I don't see them as light. But anyway, I put it in the show more in the description of this particular video. I think I might have put it in the last one too. Oh my gosh, Moosey's always popping into these videos one way or another. Either he's clearing his throat to tell me I shouldn't say that, but he just came up with a funny one. He said, "Are you going to talk about deodorants?" I said, "Well, it wasn't, but why not?" He said, "Well, tell him all about Mum." Well, who remembers Mum? Yes, you put Mum on with your fingers. And then he said, after that, was a pad, a 5-day deodorant pad. Now, at that point, Moosey says he was in the Army when he used that. And you could use it for 5 days. And then what did you do with it, Moose?
Shine your shoes.
Then he says he used it to shine up your shoes. And you know, in the Army, you had to keep those shoes shined. So if you can ever find those 5-day deodorant pads again, ladies, you know what to do with them. Thank you, Moose. But now, of course, we have sprays, so we don't have to get into that at all, right? Okay, before I quit this, I mean, you could go on forever with some of these things that you remember. By the way, I don't wear Estee anymore. I think I told you that whole story. It got to be $250, $300 on eBay because they don't make my signature anymore. And so I've given that one up, and I've gone back to one that I used to wear in high school, Windsong. It's only $14.98. You'll be proud of me, ladies, on Amazon. You get a nice big bottle of it, and it smells great. And do you know, I think it even fooled one of my kids. I wore Estee from the time I was in my probably early 30s, mid 30s, when Estee Lauder made that her signature perfume, Estee, and always bought it. From then on, the kids said they always smelled it on me. When I used to teach school, they'd say, "Mrs. Monahan's in the building, I can smell her." And that's the way it went. But now it's just beyond me. I can't justify that price. So I'm wearing Windsong now, and Debbie mistook it. I must have Estee in my blood still, or what? I don't know. Okay, one last thing I'm going to talk about is clothes. Can't see out of my glasses here. And I'm going to talk about what we wore. Well, we all know what we wore way back when. And those of us in our 80s and probably 70s will remember what we have been through from the 40s on. Shoes, round toes, pointy toes, open toes, and then the cycle starts over again, right? So we've gone through the gamut with that, with shoes, different colors, bright colors, whatever. And clothing, we went from pencil skirts, we went through big bouffants and crinolines. I remember that in high school. The college, we had the great big things. We even got into maxi coats. I remember I made a maxi coat when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Then, of course, we had the minis. The minis came before the maxis, I think. As a matter of fact, I saved one of my minis. Oh, and hot pants. I wore it all. All of that came before I even got out of my 30s. So I was the right age to experiment with everything. I had the white thigh-high boots with the hot pants, and I have some pictures of all that. Colleen found them the other day and just showed them to all the kids. But fun stuff. I saved one mini skirt that I just loved and just put it in a drawer, and there it stayed with some of my treasures. It was a rust-colored suede, and it was 18 inches long. And Colleen found it one day and said, "Mom, did you wear this?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "How old were you when you wore that?" I said, "I think I was in my 30s. I remember it was in Northern California when we were living outside of San Francisco. And I was in my but I was also 117 pounds then. So I think that justified it. She said, "Well, what'd you wear? Pantyhose or what?" I said, "I don't think so. I think it was just, regular legs, maybe pantyhose." But I do remember the colored pantyhose, the white ones, and then we got into, and this all came when we lived in Scotland in the 60s, because that's when the minis came in. I remember a neighbor who was wearing mini skirts, but still trying to wear her stockings with garters. Now, that was the most ridiculous thing. And thank God pantyhose came in at that point. It had to, because I think her mini skirt, when she was standing straight, just about covered the garter. And if she bent over, forget it. So from there, the garter belts and garters went out the window, and in came pantyhose. Now, that just reminded me of one other thing. When I was starting to wear stockings, and they weren't silk, by the way, we had to wear stockings in high school under our uniforms. And even when we wore socks and loafers, penny loafers, or black and whites, brown and whites, shoes, we still had to wear the stockings with the seam up the back. Some of the girls used to try and fake out the nuns and would draw a seam line up the back of their leg. But I think people would pinch to find out if you had stockings on. That was another story that sort of went along with the pants. Remember I told you I didn't wear pants as a teacher until 1971, when my picture was taken and put in a newspaper, because I was the first teacher in that school district to show up in a pantsuit, believe it or not. So, one other story, girdles. Did you all wear girdles, ladies? That was the silliest thing I ever remember. I remember my mother wearing all those girdles, and that must have been the thing. I know that I did wear some. Why? Because I don't think I ever weighed more than 110 pounds during those days. But I guess if you wanted to hold up your stockings with the garters, you still had to wear a girdle. One girdle that I bought once was one of those Playtex rubber girdles. Did you ever buy them? Now, it was not a panty girdle. It was the kind that you pulled up, and if it was a hot day, you used to have to put powder on your skin to pull it up. You'd get the girdle on, and then you would fasten your stockings to it. See, it was not a panty girdle, just an open girdle. Well, one time I remembered being somewhere, and I got a run in my stocking, or something happened. I don't even know where I was, on a date or at a dance or where. But I had to take the stockings off. And I don't know what happened to those little things that attached onto the stockings. And I came out of the bathroom, wherever I was, and started walking around. And as I did, I felt this girdle very slowly starting to roll up. How many of you remember those rubberized Playtex girdles? Well, I didn't know what to do, because it got to the middle of my stomach, and I was starting to have a little trouble breathing. It got up to the point where it rolled all the way up to my waist, where I had to run into the bathroom because I thought I was going to die, and try and pull this thing off. Now, I don't know whatever happened to Playtex girdles. Maybe some poor woman did die from that, and they had to throw them all in the trash. But that was my experience, and I don't think I ever wore another girdle from there on in. There were other things you could wear to hook your stockings to, but not a girdle, that's for sure. And that ends my story of nostalgic fun things. Now, if you have other things that you would like to add in your comments that I didn't cover, or if you want to add any comments about what I did cover, please do. Because as I told you, everybody reads the comments, and the comments, as my daughter said, are sometimes even more fun than the videos. Thanks, Debbie. Here we go. Are you ready?
Why am I always the star of the hair cutting?
Because you're the only guy I got.
Could you get another victim?
You asked for it. You know me, I never want to cut it because I like it long.
I'm ready, Freddie.
Yeah, it does have to be wet.
When I was in the Army, I would go into the barber who was in the PX. And everybody paid the same price. He goes, whether you're an officer or a private. It was 25 cents.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
Yeah, well, the movie was 15 cents. I think it looks me look young.
No. Men, as they age, need more hair. When it's nice and fluffy, that's when you look better. But he has the opposite idea. I left a lot of hair in the back because you still have a good head of hair.
Oh, I'm
Nice
telling
and
you.
curly. Look at that nice wave on top. So, hope you enjoyed this. It was different. I love you all, and thank you so much for all your comments and all your love and binging. And I'm just very grateful. I'll see you soon. Thanks again, and God bless us all.